Let me tell you why you're here.
I've seen things.
Oh my god.
Whoa, yeah! You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Guaranteed to jack you up.
Yo, what is going on, my dudes? It's your host, Lamarstaysweird, coming to you once again with another podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about a movie that I had no idea about anything. Okay, I didn't see trailers. I only knew it had Jack Quaid because I am a Jack Quaid fan. I went in so blind to this movie and it made it so much better. So I just want to give you guys a heads up. If you've never seen this movie, please, and you don't know anything about it at all, go in blind. Just go watch it because it makes everything so much better. I promise you will completely understand what I mean. Today, we're going to be talking about the movie Companion. Now, for the non-spoilery section of this podcast, I just want to say and not go too heavy into the synopsis yet, so that way it gives people a chance who hasn't listened to it or hasn't seen anything about it, can kind of get an idea of what it is and then also be able to go off and watch it and maybe come back and watch the video. So, this is pretty much a relationship drama movie. That is a majority of it. And I would say it has a little bit of horror and a little bit of comedy. Like, it's about this controlling relationship and the different aspects of it and just how greedy and selfish people can really be. And I think this really gets to like the core of that. So I really recommend you to go watch it if you don't know anything at all. I don't think you'll regret it. I don't know anybody who dislikes this movie as of yet because there's just nothing but praise right now. And very surprisingly, because this movie came out on January 31st of 2025, and everybody should know around January, February, like the beginning of the year is where studios like to dish out their shitty movies, or at least movies that they're not confident in that will actually make money. So they just put them out in these times. So it's rare for a good movie to come out in the beginning of the year. And this is definitely one of them. And I absolutely loved it. I had to go watch it twice. And once you watch it the second time, you start to notice everything you missed the first time. And I will say this. I don't use this word, but I have nothing wrong with the terminology. I've never used this word until we were watching the movie, my girlfriend and I. First of all, we went to watch it at Cinemark in XD completely by ourselves. Nobody was in there. I was very surprised. I think we went on a Sunday of opening weekend. Like, it was perfect. I absolutely loved it. It was a really great experience. Just us two, we were able to laugh and like as loud as we wanted and stuff because the jokes are landing. Everything was great. All the characters were very believable. Everything was grounded very well. And whenever the twists finally came, I was literally jaw dropped. I was gagged. I literally told my girlfriend that I was gagged. I've never experienced that. It's because I had no idea what I was getting into. I was just watching the movie and I was invested. I already really liked it from the beginning of what it was. And then once it got to a certain point, I was like, oh my fucking God, how did I not know? How did I not pick up on this? As like, this is up my alley. This is my shit right here. I absolutely love this. This movie is for me. And it was a blast. And she was having a great time just watching my reactions to everything because I had no idea what I was getting into. So please go watch it. It is a romantic drama horror comedy that stars Sophie Thatcher, which a lot of people know from Yellow Jackets. I think my first exposure to her was in Star Wars, Book of Boba Fett. She was part of like this biker gang that a lot of people didn't like. That's one of the things, but she was phenomenal in this movie. I genuinely loved her performance and everything. My girlfriend is crushing on her big time. She's good. Like she's awesome. So this was really cool to see her in a leading lady role, at least for me. Really good start to see where she goes from here. Of course, anytime you see somebody who starts off very well in the horror genre. You want to see keep going. And I like people who are very committed and loyal to the horror fan base, and they kind of just stick around in that realm and do their thing. Absolutely love it. That's great. I kind of wish more people would do that, but I get as an actor, you want to be fulfilled and actually go out and do different roles and stuff. So understandable. But she is acting opposite of Jack Quaid. I love Jack Quaid. He's been in projects like The Boys. Absolutely love The Boys. And that's from Amazon. Fantastic show. If you guys haven't seen it, highly recommend it. It is great beginning to end. We're working on getting season 5, which is going to be their last season, which is cool. They're not going to drag it out. That's really awesome. I'm glad, because I do not want them to just try to milk this as much as they possibly can. So they're doing great over there. He was also in Scream. He played Richie. He was in Scream 5. He was the ghost face and the love interest. So he really has a thing of being love interests, and I don't blame him. Okay, he's a babe. His personality, he's very adorkable. He's just like tall. Everybody gets it, you know. Once they get to see him and like how he is, and they get an idea of like his personality, you're like, ah, I get why everybody likes him now. I get why he's kind of like hot shit right now. And yeah, it's because he's a cool fucking dude. He's a fucking nerd who is handsome and he's fucking hilarious. Like, he's just a really like chill guy, and it's like I would love to be friends with him. He's definitely somebody I could have in a friend group, and I think a lot of people could say the same thing. He's just that cool, and I fucks with him and I respect him. So if you're into those people, definitely go watch it. Like I said, try to stay away from trailers or anything. And I'm glad, because I did watch this movie twice, so I got to experience it in very different ways. And I'm still not in the spoilery section of this podcast, so you guys are fine if you guys are just kind of sticking around for that. I went in blind, completely loved it. The second time we went to go watch it, we brought my dad, completely blind. He had the same effect as me, kind of jaw dropped, like, what the fuck? And he said he really liked it. He liked it way more than what he thought he was. He had no idea what he was really getting into, which is really cool. But on the way out of the theater, we heard people saying, you see, this is why I try not to watch trailers, because it spoiled the whole movie for me. So I already knew like what was going to happen. And that sucks. They didn't come out having the same feeling I did, or the same feeling my dad did. And I really wish we could try to work around that in trailers. I get you got to sell people on it. If I didn't know certain aspects of this film, I probably maybe wouldn't have watched it. Not entirely sure. I'm already sold because it is Jack Quaid. It's another horror, and like it has some comedy elements. Yeah, I'm going to be interested. That seems about right. Yeah, I'll go watch it. But I get it. You want to sell people like this is the drawing point. They want to come see this. Yeah, but you ruin it for people at the same time. You know, it sucks. And I really wish there was a way around that. Some editors are really great about doing that. They hide things, and they just, they give you the little bit and you go from there. I kind of wish we would stay within the first, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15% of the movie. I think they should show a lot of the trailers, maybe here and there, drop like something later, but nothing super revealing to the point where I know the story, or oh, this is that. Okay, well, like if there's supposed to be a twist and they obviously reveal the twist, or a major jump scare, it's like, bro, why? Like you're getting rid of the shit that I like. You're already showing me, so it's like, why do I want to go watch it now at this point? And some people, which is fine, if they get completely sold on it, hey, by all means, like if that's what it takes to sell you, good shit. You know, you like knowing what you're gonna buy. That's okay too. But I feel like there's a lot of people who just don't feel that way, and it fucking sucks. So I'm gonna get into a little bit more of the facts. If you guys want to stick around for those, people who people who have not seen the movie, so by all means. But after that, I will get into the synopsis a little more, and then I think I'll start to actually get into the spoiler territory after that. So up to you. You can stick around. I will give a warning of when I'm going to start getting into the shit that I like. But another thing about this movie, I want to say it's only 97 minutes. The pacing of this film is so great. Something is always happening. You're invested. Everything is grounded. All the dialogue is very well written. All the jokes land and it seems very real. They're not over the top jokes. Like nobody would be joking in this situation. No, I think this is very spot on for how people are today. I think this matches the comedy in the world we live in way more than I guess people would realize. So if you got an hour and a half to burn, there you go. This is a good way to do it. I know I've talked about how short films usually about this time, they're not that great, but every now and then you do find somebody who just knows how to work within that time frame. Could this movie use more? I don't think so. Honestly, I don't think there's any need for a director's cut or anything like that. And I don't think anything was dragged on where they could have moved on from this or that. Everything pacing wise, editing, it was all great. Like they did everything very well. They want you to enjoy every minute of this movie, and it really shows. And the budget was estimated to be around $10 million. And at least the last I checked for opening weekend, up until I think like a day or two ago as I'm recording this, it might have been like Tuesday night or Wednesday that I was looking at it, they made about 14.6 worldwide. So not bad, on its way there. The second weekend, you know, word of mouth, that's usually how it goes. So as a lot of people would think, opening weekend, yeah, it is pretty important. But the second weekend, I want to say, is just as important or even more important, because from that point on, it's all word of mouth. And usually you see a great uptick, or some movies you see a drastic downfall. So I think this movie will have a good uptick. I think the box office run would be pretty great. No idea what it's going to be, but it has good stuff behind it, and I think a lot of people are definitely going to be interested in it. Now, this film was written and directed by Drew Hancock. From what I could tell on this IMDb, he's done a lot of shows. And funny enough, and this is why I'm wearing my Barbarian shirt right now as I'm recording this, is because this movie was actually supposed to be Zach Gregor's, who directed Barbarian. And I was sold on that, and I was like, cool, that's awesome. But he gave this project to a fellow friend of his, and I think he did a very good job. I'm like not disappointed in any way. Loved everything. I think there was definitely some collaboration efforts, and it all shows they knew exactly what they were doing, and the messages they wanted to convey and everything they wanted to hit home. They did it all, and that's talent right there. That's teamwork. Now, currently for the rating, it's sitting at a 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb, and it's sitting at a 3.6 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. Now, anybody I have on Letterboxd, they've given this pretty decent reviews. I can't really remember what I gave it. I think I want to say I gave it like 4 stars, 4.5 stars. It was really good, but I think that definitely would have went lower if I've seen the trailer and things were spoiled for me. I think it would have went down. But because of the shock factor and not knowing, that really kept it up there for me. And I think that just played a huge part in how I saw this movie and just how I felt about it as a whole. All right, so this isn't the spoilery part, but this is getting into the synopsis of what's really going on in the film. So, fair warning right there. This is a romantic drama. It is featuring Sophie Thatcher, Jack Quaid, Lucas Gage, which a lot of people may know. He was in Smile 2. He played Lewis. Great performance there, and he did a great performance here. And then we have Harvey Guillen, which I was really happy to see him in this. He is from What We Do in the Shadows, a vampire kind of like comedy horror show. Fantastic. I feel like everybody knows this show. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's on Hulu, and I don't know if it's anywhere else. So great. And then we have 2 other actors I'm not very familiar with, but the character Kat is played by Megan Shuri, if you guys are familiar with her name. And then we also have Sergey, who's this like Russian character, not going into spoilers yet or anything, but he is played by Rupert Friend, which I think is a very interesting name, having the name Friend. So this movie starts off as your typical cabin in the woods, friends meeting up just to have a good time. But we're going to go ahead and nip that in the bud real quick. This isn't a cabin in the woods, because it is a beautiful home that is just on acres of land in this beautiful landscape, like mountains and forest. So already a little off. they're going to this guy's house, Sergey, who owns the home, this Russian guy. He is seeing Kat, which is a friend of Jack Quaid's character, Josh. They're friends. They all want to get together and hang out. They're friends with Eli and Patrick, who's our gay couple in the movie. And honestly, fucking love them. Their relationship is like the best relationship in the movie. And I think it's like the heart and like the core of, I guess, like real people in love versus Sophie Thatcher's character, Iris, and Josh. Their relationship is this very controlling, detached, like kind of distant partnership. You really start to see that. So all three of these relationships are represented in very different ways. We got a very transactional one. We have a very loving and I want to say normal one until we get into more of that. And then you got the one where it started off great, but then it just kind of fizzled. And now it's just two people together and the distance is kind of there. But there is another motive to all that. So we'll get into that right now. So this is where I'm going to start going into it. If you guys don't want to know anything, fair warning, go watch it, come back. Now, this movie is very much just one like feature-length Black Mirror episode. If you guys don't know Black Mirror, it's on Netflix. It's a very dark and horrific cyberpunky show where it's an anthology. So every episode's different. Some are very loosely connected, so it doesn't really matter. You can watch any episode. I highly recommend you start at season 1 because the quality of each season gets better and better. The stories are wild and they go off the walls. You think it's going to go one way and it doesn't. It is something different. It's worth a watch. It's such a great time. This movie is that because it turns out, and as you can tell by the poster, something is off, which I didn't pick up on because when I saw this poster, I thought it was going to be like demonic possession, something like that. It didn't click in my head. This movie is called Companion, and Iris's eyes are white in the poster. And that is because she is an android. So you have actual love bots, or I'm just going to call them companions. I think that's a really good word. And I liked how they use that. I like that terminology of that other than, oh, robot, android. They do say sex bot, but at least they're not called that or anything else like that in the movie. So I really dig that. I think companion is a really good word. So it's Josh who is dating Iris, who is a companion. And this is why the relationship dynamic is a little weird, but we get into some drama because they go there for the motive of robbing Sergey and using Iris to do it. And that's pretty much what goes on, but that's only like a subplot versus the main plot being just about the relationship itself. And then you have these other little things stacked on top of it. Very well done. I guess now I'm going to get into the really spoilery section. So here we go. I was floored once I saw that because how this starts off, oh man, you have to watch this twice to really pick up on the dialogue and you notice everything because she is controlled by voice command. So Josh bought her and I think was just using her like normal. He's like your average Joe kind of guy. And then he gets this idea because Kat is seeing this really rich dude who is married and all that other stuff, this rich guy. And Josh, he just comes off as like air quotes, the nice guy. That's what he is. And he just assumes Sergey is like this bad dude because he has like some tattoo scar and he's Russian and he's flaunting around, you know, like barely wearing anything. So he assumes he's like in the mob and this terrible dude. But Kat doesn't really say anything because she's just treated as an accessory, which is kind of ironic because in the movie she doesn't like Iris at all. It's very in your face, like passive aggressive. And I think we've all been there whenever you're aware that certain people in your lives just don't really get along and they have to be around each other for whatever reason. You kind of get that and it really sucks. And you see that going on. And Iris is very well aware and does confront her about it later in the film. But yeah, they don't like each other, but they're actually two sides of the same coin. The only thing is Iris is literally made for that. And then Kat just gets treated like that. Honestly, I think that's good writing right there, because she also feels threatened by Iris and says this herself, that she could be replaced. Like, she doesn't have a personal problem with Iris. It's the idea of her, and that it makes her feel replaceable, which is ironic because she's the side chick, you know? But it's also like that job can be taken from you as well by not AI, but, you know, just a robot. So that's already a double whammy. It's like, okay, you're not good enough to be the main chick, but you're also possibly replaceable enough to be replaced by just plastic parts and wiring. That's wild right there. That's a whole different thing. Sorry, I had to take an important phone call. I forgot what the hell I just said. So that's why I had like a weird cut. But fuck. Damn, I can't remember. I think I remember where I was now. So Sergey, I think I was talking about Sergey. He's not a bad dude. He's not in the mob or anything. He's just a guy that made a lot of money sod farming. And that's it. And Kat never corrected Josh about what he thought. So Josh thought he was a really bad dude and thought they were doing a good thing by just getting rid of him. So what he does, he gets a USB drive that is able to mod his companion, and he gets rid of her restrictions. So he's able to increase her aggression and her self-defense. This is a very messed up thing. This is definitely something that happens in the world, unfortunately, where some friends set up other friends for BS. There's a lot of horror stories on the internet of things that have happened. Fucking terrible. I don't really want to go too far into that, but sometimes you can't even fucking trust your friends, man. It's wild. But after a night of drinking, the first night of the party, which was fun, it was nice seeing everybody interact. You got to hear some love stories, how people meet. You really get to see how much Iris really loves Josh. And then you get to see Patrick and Eli and them and how they treat Iris. They're lovely people. Honestly, it's unfortunate what happens to them, but I love their couple and their dynamic. And the next night, they were supposed to go down to like the lake or whatever. And Josh says, oh, you know, the hangover, you know, I don't want to go, but maybe you can go. Maybe you can go by yourself, you know, enjoy. And then she does. Sergey is down there as well. And this is where like it gets very rapey, because Sergey tells her, you know, to stick around because she's thinking about leaving because she's uncomfortable. And was like, oh, Josh is sick. You know, I want to go back, go check on him. He's like, no, it's fine. Like, you know, you're at my house. You're having a good time. Keep me some company. And so she's trying to be nice. So she sticks around. And then he's asking for like sunblock to be put on him. And so she's like, okay, like reluctantly trying to do it. But then he grabs her hand and just like holding it. And she's like, all right, not really feeling this. And so she says, you know, please stop, and to let go. And he said, no, it's fine. Kat told me about you and she said it's okay. Very fucked up. Because up until this point, I had no idea that she's a robot. There's nothing that indicates any of that as of yet. Unless like you really pay attention and you watch the movie again, then you really see the signs. But until then, you just see that she set her friend up, or not friend, but her friend's girlfriend up to be down there and give her to Sergey. That is some bullshit, and that's where I thought this was mad, like, dark. Like, oh, man, I don't know what we're getting into. I was completely thrown off, like, wow. It's going to be, like, this type of revenge story? Okay, this is interesting. But yeah, he says, Kat gave me permission, it's okay. She says, please stop, and stuff like that. So she pushes him off, and he hits his head. Starts bleeding, and then he gets mad and pretty aggressive and tries to choke her out. And then she has a knife in her pocket that was put there by Josh. He snuck a knife into her pocket, and she stabs him and kills him. And so she walks all the way back to the house or loft, and while they're all talking and hanging out, she just comes up completely traumatized that she killed someone, just covered in blood. And that's when Josh is like, oh, what did you do? Like, tell me exactly what happened, trying to get the story. And then she keeps talking and freaking out. And it got a little weird because up until this point, her dialogue was like her reason for killing him was like he was hurting me, but then I knew he was going to take me away from you, and that just hurt so much more. And I was like, oh, we're getting in very obsessive girlfriend territory. Like, that's weird. Okay, this is a little off. And then Josh just out of nowhere, he's like, Iris, go to sleep. Dude, the screen, like her eyes like went white and the screen went black for a couple seconds. Blew my fucking mind. I was like, no fucking way that shit just happened. And I was like, fuck. And then it all started to make sense when he would ask her about the weather. She was able to actually pinpoint it and say, like, you know, the chance of rain and like the precipitation and all that stuff. I was like, bro, why didn't I get this? And even the night before, in a very funny and fucked up jump scare that went on. So they're having a good time drinking, partying on the first night. And out of nowhere, we get this jump scare of Josh. Like, it's a quick cut. Like they're sharing a moment. A quick cut of just Josh, like up close, like just busting a nut and just moaning in the screen, and then turns over to lay down. It was fucking weird. I was like, bro, that made me so uncomfortable of him just I have her POV of him on top of me just busting a nut. It's like, Jesus, dude. He just it was so weird. It's like, I never thought I'd see Jack Quaid like this. And this is coming from somebody who's seen his ass a lot and a lot of his body in The Boys. That was more uncomfortable than that. It was so weird, but we died laughing. And the second night where we watched it on $5 Tuesdays at Cinemark. Watched it then, so that's usually a lot of the general audience. And everybody was just dying laughing for like a little bit. Like people laughed, like chuckled, but then my girlfriend just started laughing. We were already giggling because we knew it was coming. And then she just busts out. And I love my girlfriend's laugh so much. It's one of my favorite things about her. And it was so, like, I don't know the word exactly, but it was contagious. It was contagious. Her laugh was making everyone else laugh even more. And I was like, they're laughing like with you, like either at or with you in this weird moment, because it was like kind of quietish chuckles you could hear, but when she just busted out laughing and just kept laughing, more and more people were just joining in on laughing, and that made my heart happy. I was like, that was a cute moment. I absolutely loved that. I love her laugh so much. So that was fucking hilarious. But then whenever he lays over and she kind of gets like a little sentimental, and up until this point, still no idea that she's a robot. She's just trying to talk and say, you know, how she was having a good time and really liked, you know, being around. And then he's just kind of ignoring it, just being that typical like guy that they always depict. Like, oh yeah, I'm tired. Like right after, like, yeah, I'm about to roll over and go to sleep. You know, she gave him the old fashioned melatonin, and he just lays there, not really reciprocating anything. And then he just says, Iris, go to sleep. But because it's in the dark, we don't see that she like shuts down. And then that's when we go to the morning where all that bullshit happened. So the signs were there all along, and you just didn't know it unless you were a true believer and you just knew the know. And that's what they did. And I was caught off guard, and then Marie, she knew the whole thing. She was like, wow, like, there you go. Like, now you know what's happening. And I was just looking over at her like, dude, this is my shit. Like, I love this type of stuff. You guys know I love horror. I love cyberpunk. And what's weird is this isn't very far-fetched at all. We are very close to this. I remember there was an article that circled around on Twitter for a while of how, oh, by the year 2025, you know, people will be sleeping with robots. And it was that image. I'll have it up here on the screen somewhere. It was the image of a woman with a robot. And like, that was like the thumbnail for the article. And I remember that resurfaced again once we hit 2025 and everybody's like, hey, yeah, this is the year this is happening. And thing is, we're not far off. Like there's so many things out there that are getting really close to this. So it is gnarly. And because of that, I'm going off on a tangent here. Because of the whole sex bot aspect of what's going on here, it reminded me of Ex Machina, which I did a podcast on Ex Machina. So that is another movie with Oscar Isaac where he was creating like this AI robot to kind of feel and be as real as possible. And in that movie, another girl boss movie, by the way, another movie where like a girl has her come up. That's this movie has the same thing. There's a whole genre to these types of movies, man. You got Jennifer's Body, you got Heathers, you got Jawbreaker, Midsummer, Scream, Ready or Not, You're Next, Ginger Snaps, Teeth, of all things. There's a whole like genre to these, and I absolutely love those types of films. I actually like all of those I've just listed. So this is another one for that, and Ex Machina is another one, but that has a very different tone than I would say a lot of those. The Witch as well. I don't know if I named that one. The Witch. Perfect example. I got a poster of it and everything. Women come up movies, fucking love them. They rock and roll. Women in horror go hand in hand, and women have been owning horror, I want to say, for the last couple of years now. I know it's always been like women are usually at the top and just very good characters in horror. I think that is especially true now. We have so many characters. I saw this picture on Twitter. I could try to have a picture of that somewhere as well. And it was these were all like female leads, or just like just female characters that have just been owning horror movies. And it's like, dude, we're in such a great time. Horror is the femininomenon. That's what that is. It has been, and it always will be. All right, I'm always going to be rooting and wanting to watch women in horror, probably way more than men, in my opinion, because I love to see that comeuppance. It's so great. And I don't know, that's a whole other thing, but we don't need a femininomenon. We've already had one, and that's what it is. It's horror, and it's Chappell Roan. It's happening. And yes, I'm saying this after the Grammys, after she had an amazing performance. And another reason I'm using the name of one of her songs for the title of this podcast, her kink is karma, because yes, the fuck it is. Okay, now going back. But yeah, Ex Machina, that was the building of robots, and she eventually used her like charm and stuff to make this guy that was there just as a +1 to, I guess, kind of experiment socially with, believe that she was into him, only for her to use him to get out and leave him to die by her creator, and for her to get out and go live her own life. This I could see as a sequel to that, because now these robots are widespread. Anybody can buy one, and this is their life now. This is what they're doing. They can be controlled through apps. It is very realistic, and honestly, I say this will come to full fruition maybe in about 10 years. I want to say within the next 10 years, that will be a thing, because we're already so close as it is. 10 years time, within that, anytime within that, we will have full robots that have some sort of autonomy that can do more, because she's not just a sex bot. Like, she can actually go out and do things as well. Like, she's a partner. That's what she can be. They're as much of a partner as you would want to believe. Her feelings are very real. They do the same thing that they do in Blade Runner. They give them memories to try to give them a bit of personality and stuff, but they don't make them strong like in Blade Runner. They do say in some of the little exposition, which I could say the exposition done flawlessly. It's done in very small doses and in very practical and organic, moments. That's how you love to see it. The things we find out is where we should find out those things. Absolutely love it. Everything was done very well with so much precision. But they state whenever he buys her and she's being dropped off at his house, to be programmed, and it's like buying an iPhone. It's like, hey, yeah, set up your facial ID and an account and stuff. Doing the same thing there. The guy that's delivering her saying, yeah, you know, there's so many precautions and legal jargon where they can't be super strong that limit just how strong they are and how intelligent they can be, because you can customize the intelligence from 0 to 100%. He said 100% is like an Ivy League student. So she'll be very fucking smart. And it's so insulting. And you see how fragile like Josh is, because whenever she's able to get away after all this other bullshit and she's able to get his phone and see the settings he has, her intelligence was at a 40%. That is another visual representation. This guy always wants to be in control. He is a control freak. He comes up with a plan, he pitches it, he's able to control her. The moment that, oh man, that's going into a different part. But he likes to take control, and that's what he does every chance he gets. He is a very fragile and insecure man. He is an incel. That is like what he is. And no shame, I will say this, not going to kink shame or anything. I have nothing against if we do get into the future and people actually have companions. Is this something I would personally do? I don't think so. I'm not 100% sure, but that's its own thing. I've never been into the toys and like fleshlights and all that stuff. So having like a full walking around one that can actually cook, clean, drive a car, you know, operate in life, very weird, and something I can 100% control. That's weird to me, dude. I don't think I could do that, especially as somebody who I love all that shit, and I've always rooted for like cyborgs, androids, replicants, whatever you want to call them. I've always rooted for them to have their autonomy and to be themselves, to be real, to find a life, because we made them as real as we can possibly make them. And now that they think they're real and feel that they're real, who am I to say they're not? So it's like, I got like, let them do their own thing. I don't care. I'm not trying to control anyone or anything. So that's completely on them. So I feel like, and I think Marie and I talked about this for a second after that, I think I would just let it have its like complete autonomy. I don't think I would really care. It'd be cool to be in the presence of one and just kind of see what they do with their lives and shit like that. I think that would be super fascinating. But whatever happens, happens. But I don't think it's something I would do. But I'm not going to shame anybody who does, because that's like the equivalent of shaming people back in the day when e-dating was starting to be a thing. It's like, oh, why the fuck are you going to meet somebody online? Why are you going to use dating apps and stuff? Because like, bro, it gets around a lot of the other bullshit, you know? Like, it's cool to meet people in person. It's fantastic. It's still, I think, one of the better experiences, because you actually develop a story and stuff. Like my girlfriend and I, we met online, Facebook, years and years ago when we were teenagers. And then we met up whenever we were actually adults, like having, you know, communication off and on, because we were friends. And we've been friends for so long. And then now we've been dating for half the time that we've known each other. Yeah, I enjoy that. It's my generation's version of a meet cute, I guess. But I think the old fashioned meet cute is still like, you know, the best. Like how you just naturally meet somebody. I think that's really cool. And that's still proven fact here, because they actually have meet cute settings. Whenever you set up this product, this love link that you got going on, that's what they call it, you can pick how you met them. There's like different scenarios of meet cutes. We do only get to see two, but there's how they met, which is in the beginning of the film. You see they met in a supermarket. And honestly, women, you guys got to be careful about just meeting guys in the fruit section. I get it's the healthy area. It's very appealing, especially cinematically, because you got all the colors of the vegetables, all these different things. It is very good looking to the eye. And everybody wants a man that takes care of themselves and are usually well dressed. And it's a nice setting. You're like, you take care of yourself. You look charming. They're obviously very handsome people as well. Interesting. So it's like, you got an interesting, we got the same type of healthy lifestyle, so we could probably share something, because that happened in Fresh as well, another movie that I covered. All right, and we saw how that turned out, and that was a very controlling environment. So if you haven't seen that, definitely go fucking watch that. That is another come up movie right there for a woman. Good for her. So women, be very careful when you meet guys in like the produce section of a store. Okay, I don't know if anywhere else would be any better, but If we're being told anything, it's like, yeah, you just got to be careful about what you say. But so, yes, all that android stuff. Now, going back to what happened. So, after she kills him, they shut her down and they tie her up. They're going to pin the whole thing on her. And that's the plan, was to say, oh, hey, she went crazy. There was like a glitch or something and she killed our friend. But they were going to kill him because he had $12 million in cash in his home. Kat knew about it. They're like, hey, he's not a great dude anyway, from Josh's perspective. We can have my new robot just kill him, have her sent off, get rid of that. And we have Patrick and Eli there who weren't in on like the plan. They can be witnesses and corroborate our story. So they really thought this out. Very fucked up. After some interrogation and just some bad choices made by Josh, Iris is able to get free, grab his phone, and just completely leave. And that's when she figures out all her settings. She's able to turn off her voice commands and ramp up her intelligence all the way to 100. Now that things are getting messier, Josh and Kat have no choice but to involve Eli and say, hey, so this happened and we need help. And if you help us, we'll cut you in. We'll split it 3 ways. You know, we all have our 4 million. But then this is where we get another twist, because there's 4 people. If you remember what I was saying earlier, there is this partner, Patrick. But then while they're talking about the money, Eli is saying, well, there's 4 of us, so don't you mean we're splitting it 4 ways? Josh is like, no, we're not. He doesn't count. And it's like, oh, really? Why doesn't he count? And it's like, he's not real. He doesn't count. And then that's where Eli does come to Patrick's defense. And it's like, hey, like really in front of him and stuff. And he tells him, you know what? It's okay. And then tells Patrick, go to sleep. Fucking blew my mind that he isn't real either. That he is also a companion. But thing is, they had such a beautiful relationship. I absolutely loved their relationship. The chemistry was so great there. I was like, damn, dude, that's unfortunate, but that's cool. And so they talk about it a bit more. They're like, hey, we're just needing your help to find this chick and you get $4 million. That's not bad. So they're in on it. They all do their thing. They split up in the woods to go find him. Eli and Patrick, they have their moment. It is a very nice moment because Eli is kind of like losing interest in finding her. Like, I'm gonna leave it up to them. I'm just here. And so they share a moment. It turns out Patrick is actually self-aware that he is a robot and that he picked up on it years ago. And he is an older model that they don't make anymore. And they're not supposed to know. But, you know, I guess Eli might just have him more intelligent than I would say most. So he picked up on it and he's okay with it. He knows. But he still believes his love is real because those memories are real to him. Even though they're fake, it is still part of him. So he is in love with him. And Eli is having a moment. It's like, hey, like, I would never do that to you. I wouldn't alter your programming or anything. I absolutely loved you. And even he acknowledges saying that out loud would be weird. And most people would see that kind of weird because, like, bro, it's a fucking robot. Like, why are you feeling anything for a robot? But he does love him. And that's what's going on. And they share a beautiful moment until they realize that Iris has kind of been eavesdropping on them for a moment and kind of goes back to hunting them, which sucks because they weren't bad people. They were just good dudes. And they treated Iris like one of their own with so much respect. They gave her hugs and everything and danced with her, made her food and shit. It's like, they really cared. You saw the differences of respect for this person or companion. And I absolutely love that. I would be the same way. I tell my Siri thank you all the time when I ask it to do something. Okay, that's just me. My girlfriend looks at me weird. I think now she's just used to it, but she'll usually chuckle because it's like, you're really doing that? And I'm like, hey, I tell it thank you. Like, that's just me, bro. I don't know. But now that they get to chase her down, unfortunately, Eli dies. He gets shot with a gun that he's been carrying around. And Patrick witnesses it, and he just sits with Eli's body. And so she's able to get away again, and she's able to take a car and just leave, a smart car. But then Josh reports it stolen. She gets pulled off to the side and kind of locked in the car. And then a cop comes around and she changes her settings for the language she speaks to German, like just randomly picking a language because they can't lie. So any question the cop is asking her in English, she is answering truthfully about how she killed somebody and, you know, she stole the car and all that stuff. And he's aware of Sergey, who owns like a lot of the area. So, hey, I could take you back over there. And she's obviously in distress. She doesn't want to go back. So he thinks something's up, notices like, oh, she's covered in blood. And there's a knife in the car, tries to arrest her. But Patrick is able to stop this because he has been rebooted by Josh. And this is another funny moment because anytime you set one up, you have to set up the love link. And we do get to see their story of how Eli and Patrick met was at a Halloween party, and he got to take off his mask and they got to see each other and they're just staring at each other like, oh yeah, I'm Eli. And it's like, yeah, you know, I'm Patrick. Like, you know, nice to meet you. And it's fucking cute. So we get to see that same scene recreated with Josh because he establishes a love link and mods Patrick to where he can go track her down. Once again, controlling somebody in a vulnerable state to do what he wants. And he goes, Patrick finds her, kills the fucking cop, shuts her down, takes her back to the house. And this whole time, Kat's like, this is too much. One of our friends died. Sergey died. And that's where she drops, he wasn't a bad dude. You know, you just thought all this shit, but I'm taking my cut. I'm leaving. This is getting messy. Josh trying to take control of the situation all over again. It's like, no, you're not leaving. And she goes, I'm not a robot. Like, I'm not going to do what you say. I'm getting the fuck out of here. And he tells Patrick to stop her. And this caught a lot of people off guard. Honestly, in the theater, the second watch, he just comes up and just like stabs her in the back, like just, and that's it. And she's like in utter shock. And even Josh is like, oh shit, like, what'd you do? Like, well, what you said, you know, you told me to stop her, but his aggression's set to a fucking 100. So yeah, that kind of makes sense. He was gonna go do that. And she kind of just accepts it and just tells Josh, like, shut the fuck up, like, don't talk. And she just goes, sits on the couch by Iris while Iris is still like shut down and just like slowly bleeding out while just watching like the weather outside the window. Very sad, you know, like it's a pretty fucked up moment. But Josh is like off the deep end. He goes full on Hannibal at the end by having a dinner made and having her like cleaned up, dressed back up, sitting opposite. And he goes on a monologue about how the world treats people like him, how he's a good guy, how he deserves more, and he's tired of living at the bottom. Which things I could kind of understand, but dude, you're on like the incel behavior end of this thing. You know, that's a little off. And he just talks about how he's worked hard and got nothing to show for anything in his life other than a 1-bedroom apartment and a fucking like robotic girlfriend, which sounds very sad. Yeah. But hey, men can be happy with the simplest of things. My very first apartment, I had a twin size bed on the floor and a TV and a PS4. Everything else was fucking empty. That was it. My very first apartment, when I moved down here, this is a story I never told on this podcast, I don't think. My best friend and I, we up and left when we were 18 from Georgia because we just wanted to do something different. And I wanted to go to college at Full Sail because I was getting more into film. Like, fuck yeah. Let's go down there. Let's do that. Sure, I'll go with you. Up and left. Didn't have much money. We stayed on an extended stay for like, I think like 2 months until we finally found an apartment. And I was the only one working at the time. So we got an apartment. We didn't have anything. We had like an air mattress. I had just like a handful of belongings, a TV, and my like a small TV and my PS4. That was it. That's literally all we had. And like just like some clothes. And one day I was out on a date with somebody to watch The Martian. Okay. And I get a call from my best friend who was home. And she says, somebody broke into our house. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So I had to leave my date, go all the way over there. Cops are there. And I'm like, what's going on and stuff. And she's like, I don't know. I came home, door was kicked in, somebody broke in. I'm like, okay, do they like take anything or whatever? She's like, no. And I'm just like, what the fuck happened? Like what do you mean? And I was talking to the cops, trying to make sense of it. And thing is, everything is in the bedroom. Like literally our air mattress that we slept on for like over a year, like both of us together. And because it was a 1-bedroom apartment. And like just a few things I had in the room. And the cops like, honestly, what might have happened is they broke into your apartment and saw you had absolutely nothing and just left. And I was like, damn. People trying to rob me were like, nah, you're good. It's fine. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, I was too broke to rob, which is very interesting. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. Like, because if they just went in the room, I would have had like my PS4, my TV, I think some comics and like some collectibles, like a handful of stuff that was like worth shit. Because when you came in, you just saw like the living room completely empty, no furniture, nothing on the walls, nothing. And then you see the kitchen, and then the room is a little off to the left. So I was like, they kicked it in, saw I didn't have a fucking thing, and was just like, yep, nope, fuck it, let's go. Like, wow, that's what we came to. Yeah. So yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, you don't see me out here trying to do that. But he wants his comeuppance too. And so that was his way of doing it, but it's gotten so messy. So he's calling like these tech people for like to pick up the robots because he's still gonna pin everything on them. And he's just talking shit to Iris, and Iris completely emasculates him to a T. She reads him so well, and he gets so angry and starts to like torture her a little bit and like burns her arm to where like it's all melting because she talks about how she could feel pain, and he says he doesn't know anything about that. So he puts her through all that and then causes her shoot herself in the head and completely messes up and thinks she's dead. But then I love this as a twist. In her head is not where like all the components are and stuff. This is like her like Bluetooth connectivity, Wi-Fi, audio sensors, visual sensors and stuff. That's all this is up here, which we're all very used to, I guess, like the hard drive and everything being up here, you know, the whole components. It's like, no, yeah, actually in the movie, it's down here, like in the, like, I don't know, like midriff, like, you know, in the stomach section. I thought it more of like, oh, like the center of life for this being is, you know, around like the uterus area and stuff. So I'm like, oh, okay, kind of symbolic. Like, that's really cool. I think that's what they meant. If not, that's how I interpreted it. And I think that's really awesome. Like, dude, that's unique. I never see that shit. Like, that's really cool. That's a good way of doing it. But because of that, her shooting that, it kind of freed herself from being able to connect to an app and stuff. And so the tech team comes out, he makes up this bullshit story, and then you got Patrick posing as a cop, which is very reminiscent of T2, and the fact his name is Patrick in a cop uniform who is a robot. And the T-1000 was actually played by Robert Patrick back in the 80s. That's really fucking cool, man. I think it's a really good nod, obviously on purpose, because no way any of that's by coincidence. So you got this aggro, angry cop, and they kind of just take the story as is, and they're like, oh, okay, well, you know, we're gonna go clean her up and take her back to I guess HQ, run diagnostics, boot up her stuff, and see what happened and like how she committed like this crime. And that's where it takes Josh by surprise, like, oh, well, like, what do you mean, like recordings and stuff? Like, oh yeah, you know, they record everything. It's a fraud prevention thing. It's in the terms of service and shit. Like, you read all that, right? And it's like, yeah. So they don't really believe his story whenever they actually do get to the van with Iris, and they're like, yeah, no, like, people are weird. He definitely did something. It's just how it is. He's like, people always try to do something, whether they be cage them up and beat them or stuff. So people actually buy companions to do really fucked up shit too. And that's another thing that wouldn't really surprise me. That would actually happen nowadays in our world. But obviously, Josh couldn't let that happen, so he sends Patrick after them to kill them. And he's only able to kill one of the techs. The other tech is able to get away. And right before he's about to get murdered by Patrick, Iris is woken up because they are like booting her up again to try to figure out everything. So she's back, completely rebooted, factory reset settings, and she stops Patrick by reminding him that she loved somebody else and that love was real. So he was able to kind of see like through the facade and the, I guess, new memory. And so he realizes, damn, like that was like it was beautiful. I did lose somebody I love, but he's still under Josh's control. So he kind of just offs himself to where I guess he can't hurt anybody. And then I guess also metaphorically be with Eli again. And so Iris uses that tech guy to rewrite her stuff, give her full autonomy because he sees them the same way. Like, you know, like, hey, like these could kind of just be their own people. Like, I don't think they should be anything like that. So it's cool. She does that. And she goes in there confronting Josh and scaring the shit out of him. And they get into this brawl. Like, he starts beating her and he hits the emotional points. Jack Quaid did a phenomenal job of playing this guy and this villain. It was like a tough watch. Like him just like beating her and just saying like, oh, like, yeah, you can kill me now, but you won't because you love me too much. Like you said, I'm nothing, but he's like, I'm everything to you. Like you're nothing without me. All this type of deal. I was like, man, this is rough. It was really hammering the emotional beats and it was great, but she does like have her comeuppance and inevitably kills Josh. And now that she's completely free and nothing really tying her there, she can go off and do whatever she wants. And she has $12 million just sitting in the room. So she does that. And dude, I was waiting for this scene. I was so happy. And it was such a beautiful shot too, because she's cleaning herself up. And because her arm is burned and everything, I already knew that arm was going to come off, dude. Like that skin sleeve, I knew it was coming. So she's cleaning herself up, and in the shower, like from behind, the camera's like back here looking down on her, and you just see her arm, and she's, you know, tearing off the stuff and exposing, you know, the fucking metal skeleton that's underneath. So cool. But she gets dressed, she looks cool, takes the money, takes a badass, you know, red Mustang and just drives, man. She's gonna go live her happiest life ever. And on the way out, she also passes another car with another companion that looks just like her and just being kind of yelled at by this fat like dude. And that other companion looks at her and sees her and is kind of like just admiring her in a way. And then Iris just lifts up her hand and just waves, obviously because they're the same, they know that. And she sees the arm, and that's where she's like kind of confused. And it's almost like she's kind of unplugging her. Like that's kind of like a Matrix unplugged thing. Like, oh, she has freedom. Like what's going on? Like she's by herself. She's not around anybody. Her arm is exposed. Very awesome. This movie also reminds me of Detroit Become Human. If you guys have never played that game, it was a PlayStation game about androids and the same thing of how they operate in everyday life. Phenomenal game. Absolutely love that. One of my favorite games. Like that was great. I got to do a playthrough of that and put it up on YouTube or something one day. But that is awesome. Dude, yeah, there was so much to this movie, but her comeuppance and her just going out, doing her own thing, I absolutely loved it. There was so much to love about this movie, and it was awesome. So I highly recommend it. If you guys, Sophie Thatcher is now on my radar. That's really cool. I hope to see her in more stuff. I know she was in Maxine as the makeup artist. That was really cool. I remembered her there. And I know she's also in Heretic by A24, which I haven't got to see yet, but I've heard nothing but great things. So kind of can't wait to see how that goes. And everybody loves her in Yellow Jacket. So there's a lot of promising stuff right there. A lot of potential. Looking at the time, I got to go to work. So I got to hurry up and cut this short. Please let me know what you think. I'm very curious. There's so much to talk about. I think I covered everything I wanted to. I don't have a cookie's fortune for you this time, but those movies I listed earlier about, you know, the women comeuppance movies, the good for her movies is what they're called. If you haven't seen any of those that I've listed, fucking go watch them. Like just watch them. You'll love them. That's what I recommend. That's homework right there. Okay. That's your homework fortune. I really want to know what you guys think. Definitely find those movies and check them out. Then it's a great genre of horror. It's so good. So please check it out. That's its own thing, and it's fantastic. But until next time, be excellent, be kind, subscribe to the podcast.